Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Minorities Report podcast. This is Patrick Perez Dominguez. I'm your host. This podcast is about political commentary as well as cultural and ethnic issues. Right now, I have my co-host Carl Perez. Say hello. Carl, say hello to listeners.
Hello, listeners. I hope everyone's doing well.
Awesome. So, on the first thing on the docket today, we're going to talk about Donald Trump, his presidency, and the first thing on the business is. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Minorities Report podcast. This is Patrick Perez Dominguez. I'm your host. This podcast is about political commentary as well as cultural and ethnic issues. Right now, I have my co-host Carl Perez. Say hello. Carl, say hello to listeners.
Hello, listeners. I hope everyone's doing well.
Awesome. So, on the first thing on the docket today, we're going to talk about Donald Trump, his presidency, and the first thing on the business is his executive orders. So, in his first week of office, he signed a proposed Muslim ban. I know it's not what it's called, but it's practically what it is. He's banned about 7 countries, many whom are majority of them are Muslim, but as you know, he has not banned Saudi Arabia, which there were 4 Saudi Arabians that actually attacked the Twin Towers. So we're a little confused about that. Also, the fact that why is the ban in place anyway? So, Carl, what do you think about that?
Well, I think he is pulling to his base, which is what he said he was going to do. We know that Obama had tried this with one of his thought process of banning, but also he shied away from it because he knew that it wasn't correct, and know he would have some feedback from this. Of course, when you look at Trump, he's a little bit more risque in that respect. He doesn't care, and so his idea is that do the ban and create that distraction so that people can see and motivate and be around the base. However, the other side of that is that it wasn't about the Muslim ban, it was about those with green cards. And that's what really shocked me the most. We have a vetting system, we have a rigorous system for those who are immigrants. It's been flagged on NPR, it's been flagged on CNN, it's been flagged on Fox. There's a whole lot of if you're an immigrant here, you know that it is not easy to get citizenship in the United States. It's not even hard to get the thought to just give up, because many people do give up.
Mm-hmm.
So those who are here illegally, you got to remember that some of them have been here working. The lie of they don't pay taxes is a lie. They do pay taxes. The lie that they don't pay Social Security, they do lie about that. They do pay all things that usual American people pay in our system. However, they just don't have the benefit of that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have an economy that is still heavy based on the middle class, but also it's based on those immigrants who are paying and working and paying their fair share as they move into the system.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump's idea is that if we get all of them out, that it would create more jobs. And so that's the pericope of this whole thing, I think, is to move not just criminals not having to do with those who are convicted felons, but it's about starting at one place and then moving itself further up into the status quo. So we may start now with people who had felonies, people who are illegal and have broken the law. The next would be those who are working in areas in which are sensitive to the United States. Then we'll work with those who are broken on visas for educational systems and for those who are on work permits. The funny thing I have about the whole thing is the biggest people who break visas are Canadians. We're not rounding up Canadians at all. Mm-hmm. We're rounding up South American Mexicans, and that's the problem.
Right, because I mean,
ban is the second part of that. We're rounding up, and they're not really Muslims. We're telling refugees who we've already said they could come, they can't come any longer. So those who've already prepared, they've already say goodbye. They've already gotten their stuff together, are ready to come, and here they're being blocked at the gates from boarding, or they're being blocked from exiting the airport in the United States.
Right. Now, I think it's important to make note that actually at the airport, the first day of the executive order, apparently they didn't know, but apparently those with green cards were exempt from the ban. However, what I realized was that there was a paperwork. It was an actual immigration form, which pretty much, and if you can't read English, do not sign the form. But it practically says that you forfeit your green card. So for those who because they're still doing this ban. I'm not sure how heavy, but I know the first day was crazy. Do not sign that form.
The Ninth Circuit Court has placed that ban on hold. So
thank God.
Enforcing that ban because of it has to go through the circuit court again, in which when it went through, they lost again. So therefore, now it just sits there as a stay. Now, whether it goes up to the Supreme Court, then that's a different story. Whether it goes up to he wants to fight it, it'd be another story. But at this point, he knows that he has to either do two things: apply it to the Supreme Court, or allow it to roll down and do another executive order that is going to be less robust in reaching those green card holders, and less robust in releasing those with visas and those with refugees.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's kind of a shame, though, in a way, because first of all, he's feeding into fear that only a quarter of the American people really have. I mean, if you think about it, most of the terroristic attacks have been from U.S. citizens versus anybody else. In fact, you're more likely to be attacked by someone or a person of the country that you live in versus a completely different country. And I think we all know that most people coming from Syria, Libya, and all those countries that have gone through some war just wants a place to live. You know what I mean? That's pretty much all it is.
I find it ironic that most of the people who have been terrorists in the United States have all been Caucasian. Some of them have been Middle Eastern, but most of them have been born here. Actually, I think all of them have been born here.
All of them are born here. We also have a terrorist organization called the KKK, which for some reason no one points that out.
And so it's like we said it's almost the minuteness of saying, okay, so we as African Americans have been lynched, we've been beaten, we've been put on fire, we've done all this stuff, and we haven't asked you to go anywhere. We try our best to live in harmony and cohesiveness. Now, I wouldn't say all of us, but for the majority of us, I think for the majority of Caucasians, it'd be wrong for us to say all of them are in that same boat. The KKK doesn't define a race; it defines an ideology, and that's what we need to be careful of.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. KKK is such a weird topic because, like, if you go to every other state, they have different ways of their ideology. Like, sometimes they even allow, like, people who look white. They don't even have to be, like, European white, but if they look white, they're in. You know what I mean? So I think that's just odd, and I just don't understand it, because at the end of the day, we're all people, right? But anyways, moving.
At the end of the day, we are, and Arizona's a different ballgame in itself.
Oh yeah, for sure. So moving on, I know you touched a little bit about this earlier with his immigration reforms. Now, President Trump has brought on more cohesive immigration reform, if you will. Pretty much he's expanding who to deport and who not to deport. I know that in the previous administration, Obama actually set a record where he deported many people regardless. But most of them had criminal histories and all that. But he also brought in a protection to protect deferred action or dreamers who pretty much came in before the age of 16 by their parents. And, the DACA Act is actually pretty... it makes a lot of money for the U.S. government, that's for sure. It's a 2-year work visa. People are not given legal status, but they're given a permission to work. And deferred action, meaning that they would be not deported. And so the previous administration, from what I remember, Obama introduced that, and I believe it was 2009, 2010. and then he attempted to expand on that, but he was stopped by the court. And the expansions kind of included the parents of the parents of children who have either a visa or a green card or U.S. citizens. So unfortunately, that was not allowed to pass at all. It was actually stopped at the court. I believe Obama might or might not have gotten sued for that. But moving on to that, so now President Trump is actually expanding his deportation orders. And pretty much now, even the local police apparently can ask someone's legal status. And we all know that they're looking for brown people. That's the only thing I can say. What is your opinion on that?
Well, I have a very close relationship with DACA because I have a lot of friends who are in the Dreamers Act. People who have children who have been brought over. They've graduated from school and yet they can't go to college, so they're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Their other siblings are American born, and so they have the status, but they can go and move forward in their lives, and those who can are stuck. Mm-hmm. And so the DREAM Act was a way of looking forward and allowing people who I knew to start dreaming again and to start living again. The only country that they know is the United States. Some of them have been brought over when they were babies. Mm-hmm. And so for us to think that these are illegal aliens or these people are trying to break the system is totally incorrect. These are children who had no recourse of their own but to be and to come with their parents. Mm-hmm. So for me, I think that we need to find another way, another system in which we look at those who have been brought over at the age of 16 and under and how we can assimilate them within our economy, help assist them into our society and allow them to grow and to flourish. Mm-hmm. You know, our process is that Statue of Liberty of giving me your what? Your poor. Giving me, you know, those great thinkers have come from immigrants, but also they've come because they had people who openly opened their arms and acknowledged and brought them over and allowed them to be accepted into the society. These children have been raised in the American homes. They've been in American public school systems. They've been graduating through the high school systems. They've been in the tech centers. They've to the governor's schools. They've been in all these things. You know, it makes no sense for us to hold them at bay and send them to a place where they know nothing about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I mean, you know, a lot of the dreamers, you know, have been able to go to college, but they've paid their own way through college. They've had to work 2-3 jobs. You know, they're not eligible for federal aid whatsoever. So, you know, the common misconception is that, you know, undocumented immigrants or illegal aliens, as some people call them, but undocumented immigrants, I think is a better term, is that, you know, they feed off of the government. You know, they can't get food stamps. They can't get aid. You know, they don't have social security numbers. And most people are afraid to even go into a government building in the first place. So, I mean, that's one thing, too.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I think that, you know, people saying that, oh, they're sponging off the government, that is totally incorrect. These people, you know, these folks, you know, work 5-6 jobs, and some of them are actually, you know, they're reporters, they're lawyers, you know, they're actually contributing to the American economy.
Some of them are contributing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know, they're just excellent folks. People who are your neighbors, who are your coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are the people who are forming this to be this great society, to make America great. Period.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would argue that America was already great before Donald Trump came in, but that's another story.
But see, I think that even with Donald Trump, America is still great.
Oh, absolutely.
One thing we have to remember is that America is based off the ideology that everyone and anyone can succeed. The thing that we haven't talked about is that who declares who can succeed. When you look at the majority of since 2004, the majority of those who succeeded have been Caucasian Americans. Now that is changing. We have a lot of diversity. We have more diversity, and that scares who? It scares people who have been the succession of power throughout. And so now you're starting to see a diverse Congress, a diverse Senate, you got to see a diverse president. The first time, there was a white guy who moved into the public housing of the White House after a black guy did. It was one of those funniest events ever, and yet it means to us that we are great because we're able to still see our democracy still move forward. The question we have to do is allow ourselves to not allow our hate and our fear to be played upon by other folks so that they can prove their point of saying, listen, this is why we ran, because these people know what they're doing. They can't get it all together, and look how they explode. Look how this works out. What we need to do is make sure that when we keep our eyes open and our ears to the floor, that we're hearing the news, and we understand that it's not about one person, it's about us. And if the United States is going to ever continue to be great, it has to be great in a diverse sector of how we move with each other and how democracy works for everyone, not just for someone.
Okay. Now, now with President Trump, let's go back to that. I know that in his first week or two, he's trying to, answer all the stuff he said he was going to say in his campaign and all that. So obviously he's doing immigration measures, trying to build a so-called wall, which is, I have to say, it's very foolish endeavor because there's already a wall.
Patrick,
There's already
there's already a wall there.
There's already a wall. So I mean, the thing is that I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is that, for those who want to just work in the U.S., they need to figure out a way where they can do that. Because I've been a legal assistant for an immigration law firm for about a year and a half, and I got to tell you, I've seen all sorts of things. I've seen, folks who are, engineers get their H-1B visas and then marry an American here, and then they're able to stay here for longer. And then you have people who, unfortunately, may have witnessed a crime or was part a victim of a crime, and then they're able to get a what they call is a U visa.
Asylum.
Yeah, or asylum. Well, U visa is actually one where if they're already in the country but they're not here with documents, if they're a victim of a crime, such as human trafficking, or if they witness a crime and then they cooperate with the police, they're able to get a U visa. Now, there are some stipulations on that, but for the most part, people are able to get a permission to work as well as be able to stay there. So that's the one thing I believe Obama actually incorporated into the immigration system without much uproar, because there's a lot of there's a lot of quotas you have to meet. You know what I mean? And it's the same with DACA too. There's just a lot of paperwork to go through. Yeah, I mean, it's over 8
People
years.
Don't understand the paperwork, and they don't understand the money and the fees, and the more paperwork after the fees have been paid, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Exactly, and in fact, I mean, it's easy to lose it too. I mean, you have people who may have gotten a misdemeanor, and they just lose it, and then they get sent to proceedings, and they're gone, and unfortunately, that's how it goes. But it's a very hard process. So for people who think that we're just giving out permission to work just like candy, that's not how it works. So let's move on a little bit here. So on our other topic, we want to talk about Trump, how he got into power, maybe the pros and cons of a Trump presidency in general, and also some of his supporters and maybe a few of his mistakes in the past month and a half. So I'll just want to say my opinion about Donald Trump in terms of him getting elected. I was very surprised. I did not vote for him. I was really surprised. I was actually that guy that said, okay, he's going to have the Republican nominee, but he won't win the presidency. And unfortunately, I was wrong. But, at the end of the day, he is the president of the United States. I'm not one of those people that say, not my president. I mean, I'm not, that it's sailed already. We already have our ship's captain. We just got to roll with it, right?
Exactly. 4 years.
Yeah.
People.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't vote for him either, but I find this candidacy a lot like, sort of, with JFK. JFK was Catholic, he was white, most of our presidents were Protestant, he was brought on with suspension, people didn't like him, they were afraid of his Catholicism, thinking that he would be tied to the Pope, and there's a whole lot of red tape that he had to jump through. And then you look at Trump, and you're like, okay, this guy will never win, he's too bullheaded, he's an elephant in a china shop. He doesn't have it all together. He doesn't have any background in politics, and yet he storms through with winning the presidency, just as JFK storms through with winning the presidency. But the question we have to ask is, what did we play to? The difference would be is that JFK played on the idea of hope, whereas Trump played on the idea of fear. The loss of jobs, the loss of this. But we hear this, the last 8 presidential elections have always been about fear. Do you want this to happen? It's already starting to go down in the hell basket. We are a people who don't look for hope. We look for fear, and then we begin to allow people to play on that, and then they win. The other process of that would be that the Democratic vote, those Democrats did not come out and vote as when they did with Obama at all. So you have Democrats who just sit in the living room who think, oh, Hillary has us in the handbasket, and not realizing that without them getting off their butts and exercising their right to vote, this is what happens. This is the exact result of what happens when we don't do our job as civic citizens and duties. And now we have nations who won't allow Trump or don't want Trump to come visit them because of some of the things he has said as he was campaigning. And I don't think his mind has changed from campaigning to be the president of the United States.
Okay, so you mentioned about what he said. So, do you think, so there's been a lot of talk about, is Donald Trump racist? Is he discriminatory? Does he not care about other people other than himself? We hear a lot about that. Now, I lived in Atlantic City for most of my life. And, Donald Trump had like 4 or 5 different casinos and all that. And for what I remember was that casinos were just dropping like flies because he just didn't, it seemed like he wasn't putting his all into it. I know he sold them all, and, but that city pretty much went to dust after resorts, and I guess Taj Mahal now is gone too. So, I mean, this is me experiencing him as a businessman, and so a lot of people brought that up as, well, he's a businessman, he'll get us great deals, and my opinion was that he's not that great if you lived in Atlantic City. So, but going back to, do you think that Donald Trump is racist or prejudiced or anything like that in that sort?
I find it weird because if you look at his background, he marries immigrants for wives. I mean, all of his wives have been from Russia or in that Eastern Bloc.
I think it's Slavia.
So,
I think that's where Melania Trump is from.
Kind of an interesting process for him.
Yeah.
For him, his hiring, he hires a lot of foreign aid workers. He hires a lot of things of that sort. Do I think he's racist? I don't think he's racist. I don't think he cares. I think his job is to figure out how he get the best of what he wants out of somebody and then discard the rest of it. I don't think if you're black, white, Latino, or Korean, if he cares about that. It's just, you have what I want, let me see how I can take it. That's just what we've known. I mean, we both, well, you grew up in Atlantic City more than I did, but, when I went through it, I'm like, wow, this is great. And then all of them went bankrupt. So as a businessman, can he help us out? Well, maybe he can help us out with bankruptcy. I don't know. We haven't been there yet. So
yeah,
maybe we have yet to see.
I mean, he inherited a good economy, so let's hope that in 4 years it's still good. I mean, that's what happens a lot. Usually, a president will hand off a bad economy or a good economy to the next president, and then pretty much, it's up to them to either bring it up or bring it back down. So, I think that, for me, I think that him saying the things that he said, he was using people who may be prejudiced or racist or ignorant towards other folks. I think he was using them because I think he was appealing to a lot of people, like into their fears and all that. I know that when he's attempted to speak with minorities like Latinos or whatever, it just comes across as very comical, really. He was in Trump Tower, he's eating a taco bowl, like, okay, that's supposed to appeal to who? You know what I mean? And also, I mean, Hillary Clinton didn't do much either. I mean, Hillary Clinton had this weird slogan where he's like, vote for Hillary, she's like your abuela. And it's like, sorry, but my abuela doesn't look like that, right?
Let's ask this question. Out of 8 years, those are the two best people that we can come up with.
Yeah, I was pretty sad about that.
I mean, it's kind of sad that coming from a country that's diverse, so it says, and then going back to what it had already been past 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
It was really sorry. Period. I mean, the whole thing is sorry. And the thing is that it looks like the majority is always going to play on the minority just for the vote, and then when they get to where they need to go, they forget all about those who voted for them.
Yeah,
that's not new. You know,
nope.
the process is they've been doing this since 1968, the Civil Rights Voting Act, when they understood that these people have voting powers.
Mm-hmm.
But people have to get smart about this. They have to start looking for candidates that are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing and who are saying what they're supposed to be saying, but also who have their best interest at mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's the difference. Do I think Trump has the best interest of America in his heart? No. You know, it doesn't seem that way. The past few weeks have shown us that. I mean, 3 weeks now he's in Mar-a-Lago. Who do you think's paying for all of that? You know, his grown kids are going to do business deals. Guess who pays for all of that? You know, people aren't understanding that. You know.
Now, hold on, real quick, Carl. So, are you telling me that the American taxpayers are paying for his kids too?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand Barron Trump and the First Lady, but Ivanka Trump, you know, Jared Kushner, I mean, and was it Tiffany Trump? Like, you know, those. I mean, some of them are grown people. I could have sworn that, you know, we only protect the president and his immediate family, and you know,
they're his immediate family. You got to remember that we have a daughter who's married, who's living in the White House. That's the first daughter.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't know if she's living there. Let me take that back. I'm sure she's living there. But then you have her husband, who's the senior advisor, so he's there. Then you have his wife and his son, Byron, who's now living in New York. Of course, that's there as a consensus. And then remember, what I find interesting is when Obama's mother was going, well, not mother, when Michelle Obama's mother was going to be moving into the White House to help take care of the kids, there was a complete outroar about how that was going to increase the spending, it was going to increase the this and that, and yet no one complains about having a White House really in Trump Towers, a White House in Washington, D.C., and a open White House in Florida. That's all open the door on the weekends.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that the media has mentioned that quite a few times, and, you know, recently the media has been shot down, especially CNN has been shot down by the Trump advisors and people from the Trump administration shooting them down, calling them fake news. So when they actually reported on how much we're actually spending guarding the president and his family, and how much it's going to pretty much dampen the taxpayers' money and all that, you know, it was called fake news. And, you know, I think that's just that's like another ploy, like they call like alternative truths, or what was it, alternative, oh man.
Alternative facts.
Alternative facts, yes, thanks, Carl.
Yes, my daughter and my kids are great at telling me about alternative facts. It's the views of how they see it, but not how it really is.
Oh my God. You know, there's a big difference between alternative facts and the truth. You know, the truth is that we are spending a lot of money guarding his whole family, and no one seems to care, or they just call it fake news. So, I mean, on to that, you know, and this will be probably the last topic we'll talk about. What is your opinion on Trump administration and their take on the news? Like, they seem to be totally, I mean, you know, Trump during his candidacy, he disrespected so many reporters, down to, you know, I believe there was a disabled reporter, down to Jorge Ramos, who is a famous reporter that works for Univision. And Univision is an American-owned, you know, news outlet, along with Fusion. So just putting that out there. But what do you think about that, Carl?
Well, the way I see it is this. No one likes bad press, but he gets it. I think for him it's a distraction. And it's also a way of people not paying attention to the media any longer, that they will listen to him and whatever comes out of his mouth as being gospel truth. The one thing about our forefathers is they did not like the press, but the freedom of speech was corrected because it was able to tell the truth from either a point of sight or a point of view other than the government. And therefore, the government will be able to control or manipulate the power of the people. And so, what Trump is, I think, is trying to do is allowing people to turn against the media so they can turn for him. And so that creates a dictatorial doctrine of whatever I say is right, everyone else is against us. Let me try to mentally confuse your mind to believe me versus believe the truth. And if I can throw out alternative facts that support what I say, and what I find funny is when he has alternative facts, you ask them, where do you get those facts? He says, oh, someone told me. Well, someone told me that the sky was blue, but it's raining outside and it's gray. You know, it's nonsense. You have to be able to state what you have to state, support it with the facts that are actual facts, and then be able to take those resources and send them out so that people can balance and check them as they come out. He does not like to balance and checks. He likes just to have his checks, whatever he wants to say, whatever he wants to do, and you're just supposed to believe him.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I always notice that the news can be very manipulative. And I can see both sides of the coin. The one thing I will say is that, I remember when Barack Obama was president and the way he handled the news, and a lot of times he was pretty much upfront, which I really liked. But at the same time, that was when political correctness was, on everybody's agenda. And as you know, Donald Trump is not very politically correct. He's not, he's
not very political, period. I mean, that's
he's not a politician, that's for sure. He's not a politician. That goes.
Hired people who aren't politicians either.
Exactly. I mean, Jared Kushner, who's his son-in-law, like, honestly, I mean, when I heard that, I said, okay, I don't even know who this person is, but what qualifies him to be his advisor? You know what I mean? Other than the fact that that's his son-in-law.
He drained the swamp and put the same water back in there. That's all it is.
I mean, it sounds like he really doesn't have to do much at all. He pretty much, Donald Trump says, hey, we'll go do this. Yeah, I think that sounds right, Donald.
Well, when you have a foreign policy or policy person who is subject to senior advisors versus the president, that makes it pretty interesting as for to take. I like to be a fly on the wall in some of these takes where people don't know how to tell them to shut up, or they disagree with them to see what happens. It's almost like you're fired and you go on to the next one.
I mean, that's what he's been doing. I think he fired quite a few people. I know he fired, I believe his last name is Flynn, Michael Flynn, but I believe he was like the...
Well, he didn't fire him per se. He asked for his resignation. Or the press is that Reverend Mr. Flynn gave his resignation outright. Of course, when you look at Kelly Conway, who's a complete, to me, screw up in her job description, because that doesn't even make any sense. She says that he handed it to him because it was a distraction for the administration. Well, that wasn't a distraction; it was truth. You are fraternizing with the enemy, and yet you want to tell us, "Oh, I never knew anything about it," and you did. You just try to keep it quiet.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's interesting. So, the last part is, let's just talk about Donald Trump's supporters. I know quite a few people who voted for Donald Trump. They're wonderful people. And a lot of them really voted for him because he's not a politician. They definitely disregarded a lot of things he said regarding, like, some of the crazy stuff, like when he talked about women, when he talked about Latinos, when he talked about black people. They kind of disregarded a lot of that. And I know that the folks that I know, they're wonderful people. And, like I said, I don't feel that we should criticize their vote. But I do feel that, if anybody complains about Donald Trump and they voted for him and says, well, that's what you get. You know what I mean? How do you feel about that?
I paused for a while to do this one because I think it doesn't. I know Donald Trump supporters. I think they're wonderful folks. But that's what they voted. I don't try to form a process on every decision that someone makes because some of us make wrong decisions, and believe me, we're sorry for them after we make them. So I really don't really play into that. What do you think about the voters? Just because, you know, now they're going to have to live with the next 4 years, and along with that, living with 4 years, you got to live with what, you know, that's on their dime. You know, I think when you have Republicans not going to town meetings because they know that the people who are there, their constituents are pretty pissed off with them and trying to figure out what's going to happen in the next 4 years when we've only had 3 weeks and we're already this outraged. So I think forming an opinion because of voting on people is probably not the best policy of humanity at its greatest point.
Right. You know, I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you want to vote for whoever you want to vote for, that's your right. You know, I don't think people should actually make an opinion on who, you know, why you voted for this person. Like, it shouldn't really reflect on you as a person. I mean, if you decided you wanted to vote for the president because of his policies, go right ahead. You know, I guess the issue that I have is that, you know, some people are making a Donald Trump supporter stereotype where all Donald Trump supporters are racist, which is absolutely ridiculous. You know, there may be a small percentage of people who voted for Donald Trump feeling, you know, certain type of ways about certain people, but I think in general people voted for him because they thought that he was going to do a great job for this country. You know, we would hope, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I just want to put it out there that I don't think that that Donald Trump supporters are racist. I think generally they're all great people, and they felt that Donald Trump, who is not a politician, would be great to be the president because he's not a politician. I mean, I hear that a lot. And a lot of people excuse his behavior because they felt that, you know, Hillary Clinton was exactly honest. You know, and that's another conversation and a half, right? But I mean, you know, all I can say is that, you know, for those who did vote for Trump, you know, we hope that he does great. You know, we hope that he does better. And I mean, there's no hard feelings. I mean, I voted for Obama and some people didn't, and Obama won. And you know, we had 8 years of Obama. You know,
yeah, I mean, and I think what we have to realize is that for every season there's something different. And maybe the season for Trump is for us to look at how we deal with compassion, how we deal with the stranger, especially if this were coming from faith. Looking into this, we have to really be attentive to what we're looking at and how what we're saying, because we can create more dissension than a little bit. The awesome thing is that as we emphasize our democracy, which is a wonderful thing, we're able to march, we're able to call our congresspeople, we're able to call our Senate and talk about what we agree with and what we disagree with, and start challenging them on their decisions. Because when they come home, you ultimately have the power to re-elect, recall, or to vote them out. And people need to start facing this not as a family, you know, oh, his mother was there, his dad was there, you know, his brother was a congressperson, so now it's his turn. No, it's about what are you doing, and what are you doing for our constituencies that are struggling with these issues in my area. You know, if you're going to vote down the ACA and you have nothing to replace it with, then there's 40,000 people in your district that are signed up for that, and yet you're not offering anything. You know, that's when we start using our vocal voice. That's when we start using our marching voice, to where we start asking for recalls, we start asking for, you know, folks to start contributing to what they're supposed to be doing, talking in the best interest of the constituency, not in the best interest of the party.
Perfect. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Carl, for everything. You know, I will have to say that I definitely agree with you on that. You know, there needs to be something in place to replace. If they're going to appeal something, they need to replace it with something else. They can't just leave people in limbo. So I totally understand that. I guess this is the last thing that we'll just talk about, and it'll be the final one. what would you say to, I mean, those who are, maybe did not vote for Trump, but keep saying this is not my president, and, I mean, what would you say to those people who are pretty much frustrated with the way things are now?
He, 4 years changes things. Get out. Protest. Hold him accountable to be every American's president. I'm going to show him how he can be your president. Pray for him. Acknowledge him. I mean, he is, for the next 4 years, the man who represents the United States to the world. Whether that's good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, praying for him and challenging him to do better, is always a good thing. We all don't come with a set of instructions, but we all come with lessons learned. And hopefully we can teach him some lessons as American people to allow him to be the best president he can be.
All right. Well, I totally agree with that. Like we said, President Trump is going to be our president for 4 years. We should pray for him, and hopefully things will get better under him. Who knows? He might be one of the best presidents we ever had, but let's just.
And he might get impeached. You never know.
Yeah, he might get impeached. He might be the second president to ever be impeached. So.
Exactly, and then we'll have another problem, Mike Pence.
Oh my God. He's another problem and a half. I mean, like, the only thing that I remembered about him was the fact that he wanted a policy where if you had an abortion, you had to actually have a funeral for the fetus. I'm kind of like, no. I mean, at this point, it's painful to have one already. And I'm not a woman, so I can't exactly say how it feels to have an abortion, but, I mean, I know people who have had, and they're very ashamed of it. They wish they didn't do it.
Exactly. The way I see it is, at least you know where Trump stands.
Exactly.
Quiet. You don't know where he is.
Yep.
And that's what you need to watch.
So wolf in sheep's clothing. He might be the worst one of them all. So, well, we'll call this a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to Minorities Report. We'll be back every 2 weeks. Unless you guys would like us to do a few more podcasts, just let us know. Give us some comments and some feedback. We appreciate it. Thank you, Carl. Have a good day.
Thanks so much, Patrick. Bye, everyone.